Have you noticed that patients seem differently lately? More anxious, more overwhelmed, more skeptical, more worried. And somehow, despite all the advances in healthcare and technology, it feels harder than ever to connect with our patients, to actually connect with people. And as nurse practitioners, we are trained to diagnose diseases, interpret lab results, to prescribe medications, and manage complex health conditions. But nobody really taught us what to do when a patient walks in the room already emotionally overloaded from all the Google searches, the TikTok advice, the online forums, the AI chat boxes now, all the fear based headlines in the news, and thousands of opinions before they even meet us. And now we're expected to somehow build trust, answer every question the patient has, document everything in our notes, stay efficient with our time, avoid burnout for our well being, and still leave work with enough emotional energy left over for our own families. It's a lot. Hi, for those of you who are new here, my name is Nicole. I am a rheumatology nurse practitioner, and I help other nurse practitioners find happiness in healthcare and meaningfully connect with their patients in 60 seconds or less. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about something that is much deeper than just rapport strategies, contrary to the headline of to the title of this video. And because the truth is that the world is changing faster than ever, and human behavior is changing along with it. Patients are changing, healthcare is changing, technology is changing, which means the way we communicate has to evolve and change too. Now, here's what fascinates me. Through every major technological revolution in human history, from steam engines to the internet to now AI, artificial intelligence, one thing has stayed consistent. One thing has never changed. Human beings still desire to feel understood. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about why patients seem more anxious, why healthcare feels emotionally heavier than ever, and how technology quietly has reshaped human behavior, and why connection may become the single most valuable skill in modern medicine. And I promise by the end of this video, you're going to look at rapport, your time, communication, and even your role as an NP completely different. So grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab a notebook and a pencil, and let's settle in and talk about it. I had a practitioner colleague recently tell me that she notices her patients have grown more anxious lately. She said to me, I've been doing this work for years. She works in like an urgent care setting as a nurse practitioner. And she says, is it me or have patients grown more worried and anxious lately? And I think she's onto something. For example, patients can send messages online to their providers or their medical team with questions at the click of a button, at the click of a mouse, click of a keyboard. A generation ago, doctors didn't have to do that. They didn't have to deal with this. Patients, if they want to contact their doctors and ask a question, they had to make an appointment and wait to see their doctor and then bring a notebook and ask their question. So now patients have the expectation to receive a response quickly because they can write their messages quickly to their doctors. And now, thanks to AI, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, patients can ask AI their questions and get answers immediately. I had a patient with gout recently tell me all this information he learned about gout and all the medication he wanted to take for his gout. And from a patient's perspective, it's very helpful. They can get answers to their questions very, very quickly. They have more resources. Now, not everything was correct for him in this specific patient circumstance. He inquired about certain medications for his gout, but he did not tell the AI chatbot about his comorbidities, that he actually has pre existing kidney and liver disease. And so I needed to take the extra time to educate him how his comorbidities affect his gout management and what medications he can take. And now, from our perspective as the provider, I know this sounds like extra work. It takes longer to persuade a patient, to convince a patient to take a medication. It takes longer to answer a patient's questions. It takes longer to get through a patient visit and then document your notes so you can go see your next patient. And we're not given extra time to do these things. Oh no, we're expected to do more in now what's less time. And it's exhausting. It's causing burnout. And it's so easy to complain about this, to think how negatively this affects us and makes our work harder, heavier. The world is changing faster than ever, faster and faster. And along with that, people's behaviors are changing. And as human behavior changes, we have to adapt. We need to find new ways to connect and communicate with our patients. And so today I'm going to give you a little history lesson about how this all came to be, just so we're all on the same page. So sit back and relax because you're going to ace the next family trivia night. This is going to be fun. Technology has changed the world fundamentally, altering how humans interact, how humans work, and how humans solve problems. And it started back in the 1760s with the steam engine. Back in the 1760s, this was the first critical invention of the Industrial Revolution, and it transformed transportation and economic production. Now people could move goods and raw materials over long distances via a reliable high speed train movement. And this invention bridged regions, geographic regions. It reduced costs. It drove mass production of goods and materials. It connected distant markets. It allowed factories to locate anywhere they wanted to be. In the past, they were only by rivers because that was their only previous source of power. So it turned areas into cities, into these urban areas, industrial hubs. And it allowed working class people to travel more, encouraged suburban development, created a more connected society. People were learning faster, they were connecting faster. It had transformed the world by connecting people and laying the groundwork for the modern industrial age. And thus, the Industrial Revolution was born. The dictionary definition of industrial is a very great extent or amount. The dictionary definition of revolution is a radical change, transformation, or restructuring. And so the steam engine completely, fundamentally transformed and transformed the world into this Herculean extent. And as new technology continued to evolve and invented and refined, the world continued to change. And so let's break it down. Did you know that the Industrial Revolution is divided into four subcategories? It's not just the one Industrial Revolution. I bet you didn't know that. So remember that for your next trivia night because you'll thank me. All right. So we got the first Industrial Revolution, and this is from the late 18th century. It was the steam engine. What was it? I said it was the late 18th century. All right, so we have the steam engine train. Also, the power loom as well. Automated fabric weaving, replacing manual, labor intensive hand looms, making clothing and fabric and textiles by hand. So now there's high speed, large scale production of textile cotton, increasing efficiency, lowering costs for clothing. And then the telegraph was also invented in the late 18th century by Samuel Morse. And so this revolutionized communication, allowed messages to be transmitted over long distances. Now, we move into the second industrial revolution, which was also in the late 18th century. And this included inventions like the light bulb, the telephone. So now we're talking about people have light bulbs, electricity, they have the telephone, we have the internal combustion engine, we have the famous Ford T-Bird cars, we have automobiles, we have the airplane. So now It's the advent of electricity, gasoline engines, mass production methods like the assembly line in factories. So things are picking up. I mean, we are able to go long distances to live where we want. We now have electricity. We can call people who live long distance. We can communicate with people more. The third industrial revolution is the 1960s to the 1990s, and this is known as the digital age. You know where I'm going with this. So the 1960s to the 1990s, known as the digital age. This is the stage that introduces, you guessed it, the computer, semiconductors, the internet. This stage shifted from analog technology to digital technology. And now we're currently in the fourth industrial revolution, characterized by AI, artificial intelligence. So now we're focusing on real-time connectivity. We're talking about AI-powered chatbots, computers, robots, autonomous vehicles we're studying, 3D printing, 5G networks. I mean, the digital age has revolutionized. You can see the revolution of technology. And as the world and technology is changing and transforming the world, we have to understand that when we solve one problem, we actually create another problem. There's something called the paradox of success, where every solution, especially in technology, introduces a new technical, social, or environmental issue in the world. This concept implies that problems are never fully eliminated, they're only replaced, they're only shifted, and they evolve in a continuous cycle of new challenges. There's never ever total resolution. For example, when we began having airplanes in the second industrial revolution, we started having gasoline emissions. We now solve travel problems. Now we can travel far distances to visit family, to go on vacation, to see what's around the world. We're connecting the world. But now we've introduced the problem of high carbon emissions, a form of pollution. Antibiotics, we created antibiotics, penicillin, amoxicillin. We can resolve infections, but now we've introduced the possible problem of overuse of antibiotics, which can lead to antibiotic resistance, superbugs. In my line of work, I work in rheumatology. We work with biologics, which are medications that can help suppress the rheumatic autoimmune disease like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, put it in remission and give our patients a good quality life. But now the technology has evolved so much in the last 3, 4 decades that now there are biosimilars or generic versions of biologics out there on the market. And, you know, insurance, there are so many biosimilars. Insurances want this one, they want that one. There are so many biosimilars to deal with. It's hard to wrap your head around. So my team has created a separate team that just works with the insurance and with biosimilars and biologics and finding out which biosimilar or biologic the patient's insurance will approve of and get the patient assistance program and all these things. So the team helps us with these appeals, these insurance coverage for these medications. So now when I need to put a patient on a biologic or a biosimilar medication for the rheumatic disease, I can easily just ask my pharmacotherapy team to assist, to educate the patient on the side effects, to research insurance coverage, and to assist in the financial assistance programs and make sure the medication is shipped to the patient expediently. Like, wow, that's a huge workload off my shoulders. But now this creates a further problem. We have more meetings. We have more workflows to write through and to refine. We have more emails to send back and forth. We have more people to manage. When you solve one problem, you create another problem. Now, I'm a mom, so I've been reading a lot of parenting books naturally. And if you've heard of Jonathan Haidt's New York Times bestseller, it's been a bestseller for the past year or two. It's called The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic in Mental Illness. It's a fascinating book. I highly recommend it if you have kids or you have nieces, nephews, or you care about, you work in pediatrics, it really helps you understand this generation, especially the alpha generation. And so Jonathan Haidt writes that the mental health of adolescents has plunged since the 2010s. 2010s. We're talking about the AI generation. And so his rates of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicide rose sharply, more than doubling. He demonstrates around the world, not just the US, but every country around the world, play-based childhood began to decline in the 1980s and was wiped out by the phone-based childhood in the early 2010s. He says we are overprotecting our children in the real world while underprotecting them in the virtual world. Experience, not information, is the key to emotional development. Physical play, outdoors, being with other children of mixed ages is the healthiest, most natural, and most beneficial sort of play. And so now that we've introduced technology, we're now dealing with a surge in mental health illness that we hadn't had before in our youth. So now we have a new problem to deal with that we've introduced. And these are just a few examples of the paradox of success. When we solve one problem, we create another problem. And I get it. This sounds like a total like doomsday type of scenario. Like, why are you telling me this, Nicole? So they're saying we're doomed. We'll always have problems. Now, here's the good news. Despite thousands of years of technology and cultural advancement, core aspects of human nature, biology, psychology, has remained largely unchanged. People still thrive on connection. This is the one skill set that will never go out of style, no matter how much our society, the world, technology evolves. People still thrive on connection. Even almost 200 years ago, when in the 1850s, $1, $1 was equivalent to 42. I'm sorry. In the 1850s, $1 back then, $1 is the equivalent of $42 now in 2026 in the US. In fact, speaking of the 1850s, in the 1850s, it was the era of horse-drawn carriages and early steam trains just developing. Queen Victoria of England co-organized the Great Exhibition in Hyde Park, London. It was the first in a series of world fairs and exhibitions of culture and technology and advancement. Over 6 million people visited the Great Exhibition of 1851. This represented about 1/3 of the British population. It was considered the largest mass event in the history at the time. It brought famous people, including Charles Darwin, natural selection, and tickets were only 1 shilling on the weekdays. So this allowed even the working class to attend. And back in the day, in the 1850s, a shilling is equivalent to about 42 cents. I'm sorry, 24 cents in the US. So that's real dirt cheap. They wanted everyone to go to that exhibit. It was a truly groundbreaking event in the course of history. And that night, after the first day, Queen Victoria wrote in her journal, in her diary, something she kept since she was the age 13 and until her death. And so this is actually documented. She wrote, "This day is one of the greatest and most glorious days of our lives. It is a day that makes my heart swell with thankfulness. The Green Park and the Hyde Park were one mass of densely crowded human beings in the higher good humor and most enthusiastic. I never saw Hyde Park look as it did, being filled with crowds as far as the eye could reach. It gave me a sensation I will never forget. I felt incredibly loved." Time can pass. The world can change from riding horses to driving a car to pooping in a bucket to indoor plumbing and pooping in an electric bidet from Japan that sprays water to wash your butt for you. But human psychology doesn't change. Even 200 years ago, people want to feel connected. They want to feel recognized, valued, and cared for. So how do we do this? When we have so much on our plate, how do we find extra time that we don't have, that we can't create more time, which doesn't exist, for learning how to connect with our patients and have quick rapport with our patients? How can we build trust faster so that they can be more receptive to our education, to take medication, to make our day smoother and more well run, so that we can leave work with enough emotional energy to go home, walk in the door with a smile and energy to hug our kids and give them a childhood core memory that their mom was always in a good mood when she came home from work. We can't create more time. There are only 24 hours in a day. That is fact. Taylor Swift, Warren Buffett, Oprah, they all have the same 24 hours in a day that you do. So the real question we should be asking is, how can we expand time? How can we expand time? How can we make time work more in our favor? How can we leverage time better? Have you heard of the rule of 100? This is really important. If you haven't, I want you to write this down. If you're listening on the podcast, I highly recommend remembering to write this down later or coming back to listen to this later. This is really key. The rule of 100. The rule of 100 states that if you spend 100 hours per year on a specific single discipline, that will make you better than 95% of the world in that discipline. Let me say that again. The rule of 100 states that if you spend 100 hours per year on a specific discipline, that will make you better than 95% of the population of the world on that specific discipline. If we do the math, 100 hours divided by however many 365 days a year, that is 18 minutes a day. 18, 1 8, 18 minutes a day. If you spend 18 minutes each day learning, refining one new skill, and building rapport with your patients, you will achieve significant progress. Significant progress. And I know we're all pressed for time. 18 minutes. I could see a patient 18 minutes. You could probably answer several patient messages in 18 minutes. For me, I could probably clear my lab results, my imaging results, my inbox folder in 18 minutes. That 18 minutes is gold. So I'm going to make this really, really easy for you. That is why these episodes are at least 20 minutes long. If you're watching the YouTube channel or you're listening to the podcast, these episodes are at least 20 minutes long. If you want, you can watch or listen to a 20-minute episode each day. You'll surpass 95% of the population in your rapport skills. I promise you. You can listen to an episode on your commute to work, going to work, driving home from work, while you're cleaning the house, vacuuming, doing errands, maybe while you're like brushing your teeth and doing your makeup in the morning. I'm making this really easy for you. And it's so easy to skip a day. It's so easy to just, feel like you want to be lazy for 18 minutes in a day, to scroll TikTok, to watch an episode of your favorite TV show, just to binge watch Netflix. I totally get it. I also have that everyday temptation to be lazy as well. I am not immune to those feelings too. And especially on those hard days at work, and I feel like my brain's melting and I just want to not think, not have to make any more medical decisions in my head. Like I am just exhausted. But that is why the present is called the present. It is a gift to be given another 24 hours of your life. And as nurse practitioners, we get a front row view. We get a front row seat to this because we have patients with terrible comorbidities. I've seen patients with A1Cs up to 10, 12. They're in ketoacidosis going to the ER. I have patients who have Raynaud's phenomenon and they're getting gangrene. They're going to the hospital to get fingers, toes, legs, feet amputated. I mean, we see the worst of the worst. And so it is truly a gift to be given another 24 hours of life. We get the opportunity to choose what to do with the next 24 hours of our life. Do you want to spend 18 minutes being lazy, watching TV, scrolling social media, and after that 18 minutes is up, that's it? You lost that 18 minutes. You can't get it back. You can't benefit from it. It's gone. Time passes and it's gone. You can't buy it back. Or do you want to use that 18 minutes in a way that the next day you will benefit from? And the next day will benefit from the last 2 days of 36 minutes invested, and so on. And it compounds. Do you see what I'm trying to show here? That is how you compress time. That is how you leverage your time. That's how you expand the time. You make time work for you. Just like you invest money in your bank account and you let the interest grow, it's the same concept here. We're letting our 18 minutes a day compound as interest and compound every day to benefit our life. So your life tomorrow is better than yesterday. Your life next week is better than last week. Your life next year is better than last year. And the title of this video may be misleading. I know it's not actually every rapport strategy you need, because the truth is you cannot know every rapport strategy, trick, hack, tip, pearl of wisdom, advice, guideline, the lowdown, instruction, recommendation in a single video or episode. That's not possible. There are over 8 billion people on this planet. You cannot know how to connect with each and every single one of them in a short 20 some odd minute video. That's just not possible. In fact, Dale Carnegie, he wrote his classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He wrote that classic book over several years. It wasn't just written in one setting. And that book is a culmination of 2 decades of learning, teaching, experience. And it's a classic today, even today, decades later, people still reference to it. This episode may not be about how to build rapport, but it's actually about how to compress time to build rapport. And every day we worry we don't have enough time with our patients. We want to be more efficient with our time. This is how you do it. Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems the same with, I'm sorry. Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use when we create them. This means that addressing our new problems from these new advances, it requires fundamentally changing our mindset and our approach rather than applying the same methods that cause the issue. So we cannot expect to keep using the same technology to solve our current problems. We cannot, if patients are getting more anxious because of the internet, because of AI, because all these answers are getting, but they have more questions, we cannot use the same thing to answer them. We have to be able to connect with them and build rapport. Now, if this message resonates with you, if you're like, yes, Nicole, I want to leverage the next 18, 20 minutes to make my tomorrow a better reality than the one it is today, then I invite you to click the link below in the description box and join my weekly email newsletter where I give you private reflections, real-time insight, and clear actionable ways you can make your practice better as a nurse practitioner. This week's email newsletter, we're talking about changing our old habits that we do on autopilot and exchanging it for a new one that can literally start like today and will make your career as a nurse practitioner interacting with patients and your life in general happier and better. We all knew working as a nurse practitioner would be hard. At the end of the day, we just want to feel like it matters. And so click below the link. I highly invite you to join our weekly email newsletter family. And just a little fact, if you join, you might get a free gift with your first email from me. The world is changing so fast. History has shown us that already, and it will continue. Based on history, it will continue that way. The world will continue to evolve and to change. And as the world changes, so will people's behavior and habits, and also their thoughts and their emotions. And this is really for that nurse practitioner who observed that her patients seem more anxious, more worried. And I know if she feels this way, there are other nurse practitioners out there who feel that way too. Too many people see each day as another thing just to get through, just to survive and make it through to the end of the next day. But you get to choose to use every day you're given as a tool to sharpen your rapport skills and to build a meaningful career you love. Choose to spend your life fueling your brain so that your brain can fuel your life. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, then I highly recommend you listen or watch my last episode. Healthcare administrators hate me for sharing their secret. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next episode. And remember, I am always rooting for you.